I want to talk just very briefly about the final paper and leadership development plan, which I do hope you've either begun writing or you will begin writing after you've completed your Three Good Things paper. As you look at the final development plan, I hope you can see that all the work that you've invested through the discussion boards, as well as through the papers, the Warren Bennis papers, and your EI field work, how those will link to your final development plan. So in column 1 of your final plan, as you're looking at the actual template that you'll be writing, you need to select 3 strengths that you're going to be focusing on. And you'll have 3 separate development plans. You'll write 1 for each. And again, going to the Seligman and Peterson 2005 paper, I'd like you to focus on how you're going to use those strengths in new ways. And what you're to do is to pick either 2 emotional intelligence behaviors or 2 via strengths and 1 emotional intelligence behavior. So some combination where it adds up to a total of 3, either 2 emotional intelligence and 1 via strength, or 2 via strengths and 1 emotional intelligence behavior. And when you look at the sample, you'll see that what you'll need to do in column 1 is to describe not only the behavior of what you're going to focus on, say as an example, focusing on building my self-confidence and specific tasks or assignments you're given at work. And I want you to specifically describe the project, the task, or the situation in which you're going to be building that strength. So staying with the example of self-confidence, I might be very self-confident in projects that I'm working on and leading that I have already had experience in. But maybe my manager has asked me to be involved in a new project, an assignment where I don't have as much confidence because I haven't done it before. I'd like you to specifically reference the situation and what you're going to focus on in terms of your self-confidence, and defining very specifically then the behaviors that you're going to engage in. So maybe it might be I tend to be more reserved and quiet in meetings when I'm still on the learning curve and I'm not clear on all the details. So my focus may be on actions then that I will put in column 2 so that I'm much more active in asking questions in meetings, seeking out other experts in order to help me understand the background and the information, and confidently reaching out and being aware of that it's okay not to know all the answers, and that part of showing confidence is being willing to ask good questions and to get others' input and to include their input and ideas into this new project or the task or the assignment that I'm working on. So column 1 should be a very specific definition of, first, the strength you're going to work on, and second, the inclusion of which project or situation or circumstance that you're going to be focused on, why it's important for you to develop this area and continue to expand this strength. Then you'll see at the bottom of the first column, you need to write down what obstacles you're likely to encounter. And of course, you just wrote a discussion board on obstacles and ways that you could use your strengths in order to address those obstacles. So here is where you'll want to reflect back on the discussion board and think about what it is in terms of, again, staying with the example of self-confidence. What may slow me down in this area? What obstacle might I need to focus on? And what steps will I take? And how will I use my strengths, maybe even some of my other strengths, to help me deal with this obstacle? Because I know I'm going to encounter it. It's going to happen because anytime you're talking about making change, by definition, we can't anticipate everything and obstacles will occur. So I want to be as proactive in thinking those through as I can. So that's column 1, describing what strength you're going to work on in what situation, and then what obstacles you're likely to encounter. Then in column 2, you're going to identify a minimum of 3 actions or behaviors that are linked to the strength you're seeking to develop. These actions or behaviors should actually focus on the next roughly 30 days. They should be very specific in what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, including how you're going to measure your success in that particular area. Now, I'm hoping you're going to reflect on your Warren Bennis summaries, where you wrote these exact types of elements, as well as your EI fieldwork, where you learn through the observations of others, as well as reading about the fieldwork of other colleagues in our class in order to identify approaches to engage, expand, and enhance both emotional intelligence and, in the case with the Warren Bennis summaries, the impact on leadership and the impact on growth and what leaders do in order to be effective. So for column 2, they should be very detailed, very specific actions and behaviors that are linked to the information in column 1, along with the measures. Again, look at the samples that I've posted on Blackboard of other individual development plans that students have written. Again, though, there should be a minimum of 3 actions, all of which are focused on about the next 30 days in terms of work, school, whatever venue that you're focused on in terms of the particular area that you've selected. The third column then, just as you've been doing in the Warren Bennis summaries, is around coaches and support people. So in this column, you need to list specific people by name, and if you prefer to use a pseudonym, that's absolutely fine. But describe not only what the person's name is, but what you're going to ask for them in terms of support. So you may describe, I'm going to ask Pat for support in meetings so that if it's a new project I'm working on and I need more self-confidence, Pat has more experience in this area. And what I'm going to request of her is that we spend time, maybe 20 minutes before our meetings, where I'm going to share with her my strategy and then ask for her feedback. Is there anything else I should incorporate or be aware of in light of the meeting that we're about to go into? And then I'm going to ask her during the meeting, if I forget or she comes up with an additional idea in a certain area, she's going to prompt me by saying, Deborah, I was also thinking you might want to consider, and then she'll prompt me in order to continue to take on the leadership role in the discussion on the new project that I'm looking to lead. And then I might have Henry, who will be a coach in my column 3. With Henry, he's not an expert in the particular area, but what I noticed with Henry is that he really knows a lot of different people in the organization, and he could give me ideas of other people in other departments and make suggestions of who I might want to reach out to in order to get more data, information, or ideas, so to help me expand my network in light of this project, because that's one of Henry's strengths. Then in column 4, you're going to write down the time frame for measuring, and these should be very short-term time frames, because what's in column 2 should be all things that are happening within about the next 30 days. So these time frames should be no longer than weekly in terms of when you're going to measure and how frequently you're going to measure your progress on those column 2 behaviors and the momentum that you have in those areas. So that will be what you'll complete for your individual development plan. You'll do this with 3 different areas. So you'll be completing the same form 3 different times with 3 different goals. Please do not just cut and paste from one to the other, or just directly cut and paste from your Warren Bennis summaries or from your emotional intelligence fieldwork. They should really be customized, refined, and detailed in order to demonstrate the fit toward the project or toward the situation or toward the development that you want to experience given what you described in column 1. So again, this would be very detailed, very specific, and I hope that you feel like you've gotten a lot of coaching and ideas from the last several weeks of our classes and what to do in order to ensure it's a good, specific, and thorough development plan. As you heard me say on week 1, this is a theory to practice course, and so this development plan should very much be practices and specific actions that you're going to take in order to continue to build your momentum as a leader in your current role. Again, whether your current position is a formal leadership role as a supervisor, manager, or director, or if you're an individual contributor and the type of leadership that you bring in terms of the work that you do and the activities that you engage in on a daily and weekly basis. So, you've heard me say my encouragement is to write that development plan first, because then the paper, there are 4 different sections in the paper and they directly correspond to what you've written in the development plan. The key is to write in that paper your reflection on the development plan, not to repeat what you've written in the development plan. For the final paper, I again have included samples, and you will need to have in this final leadership paper a minimum of 10 references, scholarly references. And again, you can use articles from any of the postings that I've made. You can also use articles from your Week 7 Scholarly Articles research in order to have the minimum of 10 scholarly references. So this is the theory part of our Theory to Practice of Leadership class, where the development plan is your practice and your paper is more about the integration of the theories. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is to make sure you look at the rubric that is very detailed and that I've posted up on Blackboard for you, as well as the sample papers. Identify the resources, the scholarly papers that you'd like to cite. And again, just to reiterate, when you're citing scholarly papers, please make sure that you're focused on the outcomes or the conclusions of the papers, not a summary of some of the methodology or the tactics that were used. So as an example, we wouldn't want to have a citation that said, authentic leadership dates back to the 1700s as we look at the history of leadership research. That wouldn't really be saying much about what authentic leadership is per se. So I'd like you to really focus on describing what authentic leaders do and the linkage to emotional intelligence. There's clearly direct linkages to emotional intelligence and what we do when we're behaving in ways that demonstrate authentic leadership that really derive from who we are as an individual and also the impact that we're seeking to make in positive ways on the people that we're working with. Again, for these scholarly references, you cannot use a video or a blog. They must be citations from a peer-reviewed journal article. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing your papers. Take care now.